blacks and didn't intend to yield anymore. Now, Johnson, who gave more, and Truman, who gave more substantial change that's usable, both Southerners, both used the word nigger liberally, and yet both of them opened new doors for new progressive elements to move forward over and above Kennedy. A northern rich brat who got annoyed by the pressure being put on him by the movement. All right, they gathered in Washington. John Lewis had written a dynamic speech really dealing with the issues in the United States forthrightly. Not so radical it would be unbearable, but dealing with it totally honestly, no subtlety. He did not have a dream. John Lewis had a plan. Now in the classroom, I tell some of my students soon after this King's speech, everywhere King uses the word dream, use the word plan. I have a plan. Then end with a threat. If my plan don't work, thus and so will happen. This is where Martin Luther King missed Mahatma Gandhi's point. Mahatma Gandhi, a ruthless politician, would go to the British and say that these are my plans. And if these plans don't work, there are 70 million people in the northwest frontier called Sikhs. And they held knives so well you think they were born surgeons. And the Sikhs were waiting up there and told the British, if his non-violence don't work, our violence will. So having a violent alternative waiting in the wing, Mahatma Gandhi goes in to negotiate with the British with a power base. Martin Luther King had a violent alternative waiting in the wing, but he wouldn't use it. Big Bad Malcolm and the Nation of Islam. They were straight then, they were ready to deal, and they had the weapons. If someone comes to take a life, bring a life with you, because we tend to take some too. They were clear on that point. All right, now, a Catholic priest said that if John Lewis made his speech, he would withdraw. Now, the white trade union movement with the march, all of this is before the march, before the King made the speech, said if he made such a dynamic speech, pointing out errors in white approaches to the movement, they would withdraw. In other words, the whites came into the march to have their way. They came into the march to control it. And they decided they would either control it or destroy it. You have to end your illusions about friends. And once you end your illusions and realize that if you want a friend, look in the mirror. That's where you start. See what's looking back at you. And if you have no friend there, chances are you may not have one at all. That's the first one you need to depend on. All right. John Lewis altered the speech on the urging of A. Philip Randolph and Bayard Rustin and other people around him. They left Martin Luther King out of the discussion. Roy Wilkins was also there. Now, when John Lewis altered that speech not to offend the whites, knowing full well that all he was speaking was the truth, and if the truth offends you, so what? That was the beginning of the white dismantling of the civil rights movement. Now Dr. King makes the speech. As oratory, as speech making, it was one of the classic speeches of the 20th century. But you need to compare Martin Luther King's speech with Booker T. Washington's Atlanta Cotton Expedition speech. Because Booker T. Washington, a skilled craftsman and a con man, was telling the whites, these are your advantages. And the blacks too, and the northerners and the southerners. These are the positive things you have that you can take advantage to, and that if you fail to take advantage of these things and pull yourself together and accommodate each other, that will be disaster. So as mild as people think Booker T. Washington was, as compromising as you think he wasn't above threatening. If you don't do this, certain consequences are going to happen, and I'm not going to be responsible for them. Gandhi did the same thing. Now, I don't have time, and I'm not speaking, trying to prove specifically that King was not a follower of Mahatma Gandhi. I've done that in too many other places. But I'm saying that King did not even know Mahatma Gandhi. Now, I admire both men in that political setting. But I know that very little relationship one to the other. Now, what King was saying, he had a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia he'll see a black kid and a white kid side by side. In other words, I hope one day that you will accept us. We have to stop crying for other people's acceptance. And once we accept ourselves and build ourselves and strengthen ourselves, the question is not whether they will accept us, but whether we will accept them, and on what terms. And this is a point we continue to miss. We can build ourselves to the point where we can say, we'll consider accepting you if you agree to these terms. Otherwise, we can do without you. You got nothing that I can't handily do without. I can make my shoes, I can make my bread, I can fix my house. So what I need with you? Once we declare our own declaration of independence, we can deal with this. All right. Now, King continued his harangue about the speech. The speech was one of the best integrationalist speeches ever made. It was a plea for acceptance. It was not a revolutionary statement saying that we want nationness. We want something in the world when we will not be beggars of other people, but other people might petition us. That means nation status, manhood status, and respectability in relationship to the control of nations. This is why